Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Josh Does Coding. In today's tutorial, we're going to be looking at setting up a sprinting system for the player. So, the first thing you're going to want to do is come to Settings, come to Project Settings, come down to Input, and add a new action mapping. So this action mapping is going to be called Sprint. You can call it whatever you want. And I'm going to assign it to the left shift button, but again, you can assign it to whatever you want. Once you've created your binding, we can X out of here, and we are going to go into our player character. If you're watching this tutorial, I assume you already have one, so you can just open up whatever one you already have. So what we're going to have to add to your character is a new variable called stamina and a second new variable called max stamina. Now I'm going to make these both floats. You can make them integers if you want. Both should work. I'm going to compile and save that. And then once you compile, you can set your default value. So I'm going to set both their default values to 100. I'm also going to create a new variable called isSprinting. And the isSprinting variable is actually going to be a Boolean. Again, you can compile and make sure the default value is set to false. Awesome. So let's get into the blueprints. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get your action into the game. Like I said, we called it sprint, so we're going to get our sprint action in here. Then when pressed, what we're going to do is we're going to set isSprinting. We're going to set isSprinting to true. And when it's released, we're going to set isSprinting to false. So now when you press the shift button, it will set isSprinting to true, and it will remain true until the player lets go of the shift button. So until the player stops sprinting, then it will set it to false. So now what we need to do is we need to get our event tick in here. So what this is just every frame your game is going to call event tick. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag out and add a branch node. And we're going to check, so we're just going to get isSprinting. If isSprinting is true, we're going to set our stamina. If you aren't aware, you can just drag the variable from the side here in. So we're going to drag in our stamina. We're going to set stamina. And so if true, what we're going to do is we're going to get our stamina. And let's just move this down so we have more space. We're going to get our stamina, and we're going to do a float minus float. Again, if you're using an int, you can just use integer minus integer. And you can drag that into there. So you have to keep in mind that this is being called every frame. So your stamina will drop very quickly if you leave it at 1. So I'm going to set it to, let's say, 0.2. 0.2. So now what we're checking every frame, if the player is sprinting, the player is going to lose 0.2 stamina. Now what we can do is say, if it's true, set stamina to the stamina to minus 0.2. And then we can say, add another branch, and we can say if, so we'll check if float is greater than So now we're going to check if stamina is, or I guess I should say, sorry, to do stamina is less than or equal to, float less than or equal to. We're saying if float is less than or equal to 0, if that is true, we're going to set is sprinting to false. So this way, when you reach 0 stamina, even if you're still holding shift, your player is going to stop sprinting. Now, what we're going to want to say if this is false right here, so our first branch is false, we're going to say that stamina, except this time we're going to get stamina, and instead of doing stamina minus, so float minus, we're going to do float plus, and we're going to say stamina plus 0.2 instead of minus. So up here, how you did stamina minus 0.2, and then you set the stamina. Now we're doing stamina plus 0.2, and then setting the stamina. So now if the player isn't sprinting, we're pretty much going to let him regenerate his stamina. And then we're going to say branch. We're going to get a branch, and we're going to say, lower this. We're going to say if a float is greater than or equal to, the float is greater than or equal to 100, which we set, actually, okay, what we can do is we can get our max stamina, which has been set to 1. So now we're going to say if stamina is greater than or equal to max stamina, we're going to set our set stamina, and we're going to set it to our max stamina. So this way, if somehow we go to, say, 101 stamina, right, this will automatically bring you back down to your max stamina, which in our case is 100. So just to go over this blueprint again quickly, you're going to get your sprint action. On pressed, you're going to set is sprinting to true. On release, you're going to set is sprinting to false. Then in event tick, you're going to say if is sprinting is true, you're going to get your stamina. You're going to say that your stamina is equal to stamina minus 0.2, set that new stamina, and then you're going to check if your stamina is less than or equal to 0, you're going to set your sprinting to false. If you are not sprinting, you're going to say your stamina equals stamina plus 0.2, and that if your stamina is greater or equal to your max stamina, that it is set to max stamina. And again, this is just a way to make sure you don't go over your max stamina. All right. Once that is finished, you can compile and save this blueprint, and we are done with the player character. Now what you're going to want to do is you're going to add some UI, a stamina bar. So we're going to come down to user interface, add a widget blueprint, and we're just going to call this stamina widget. Now you can open up the widget. You're going to come over to the left side here, and you're going to drag in a progress bar. And you can just make it however big you want, doesn't matter. Then you can come pick your color and appearance. So I'm going to pick green. And then you're going to want to come into progress, and you're going to want to create a binding for the percent. Now, if you haven't watched my health bar tutorial, I go much more in depth about how UI works. So I would suggest checking out that video if you are curious about any of the UI stuff that we're doing here. So what we're going to want to do now is we're going to want to drag out from get percents. We're going to go pass to player character. And this is just going to be whatever you named your player character. So I named it player character, but yours might be, you know, FPS character, whatever it is. And then here we're going to get player character. Then just make sure that the return value of get player character is set as the object in your cast2. Then you're going to, as player character, you're going to get stamina. You're also going to, as player character, get max stamina. Then you're going to do a float divided by float. Again, if you're using an integer, just do int minus or int divided by int. And you're going to say stamina divided by max stamina is the percentage of the percents bar. So you can compile and save that. So one more time, you're going to get your player character. The return value of your player character is going to be the object of your cast2. Then as your player character, you're going to get stamina, max stamina, divide the two, and then drag it out to the return value. So what we're doing, since this is a binding, is we are basically saying that whatever this right here equals is the percentage of the percent bar or progress bar. So again, compile, save, pop into the world. Actually, you got to come back to your player character. One final step here. So in your event begin play, what you're going to do is you're going to create a widget. So if you don't already have begin play, you can just search for begin play. Begin play. Then in the class here, you're going to select your stamina widgets, and then you're going to drag out from your create widget to add to viewport, and the return value of your create widget is going to be the target of the viewport. Now you can compile and save. So again, we added event begin play. From event begin play, so when the game starts, we're creating a widget, and the widget we're creating is the stamina widget, and then we're adding the widget we just created to the player's viewports. So now when you load in, you can see your stamina bar. When you sprint, the stamina bar is going to go down, and then it's going to start regenerating when you stop sprinting. So that's all good. Now we actually have to adjust the player's movement speed. So if you open up your player BP again, come back down to your input action. What you're going to want to do is drag out. Actually, what you're going to want to do is come over here to your components and get your character movements component. And you're going to want to drag out from character movements. You're going to want to set max walk speed. So to check your current walk speed, you can just click on your character movements and search for walk, and you'll see you get your max walk speed, which is by default 600. So I'm going to set the sprints to be so double your default walk. And then what you're going to want to do is, for false, once again, you want to drag out from character movements, set max walk speed, and then you're going to set it back to whatever you want your walk speed to be, which for me is going to be 600. So again, what you did is you said if is sprinting, you're going to get your character movement speed and set its max walk speed to double what your default walk speed is. And then you're going to say when you are no longer sprinting, that you're going to set your max walk speed back to what your original walk speed was. So now we have the functionality of the stamina bar and your stamina, as well as the change to the speed. Now you can see when you walk normally, now we're walking pretty slow, we aren't using stamina. When we start sprinting, we move quicker and we start losing stamina. We stop, we walk slower, and stamina comes back. Now, if we just sprint until we run out of stamina, you will see that it automatically stops sprinting and starts regenerating your stamina. So one thing I did forget is that up here, we're in the event tick when we said is sprinting to false. We're also going to need to get our character movement speed. So let's just set max walk speed. And again, we're going to set it to 600, which is our default walk speed. Now, after you add that, and you run to 0 stamina, this time around, not only will it stop you sprinting and regenerate your stamina, but it's going to slow you down again. And then once your stamina regenerates, you can sprint again, and it's perfect. Runs out, you slow down. And then when it reaches max, it will not go over max. As you see here, it's going to stop at 100 and start going down again from your max stamina. So that is how you get a sprinting system set up for your player character. I'm sorry, this is on the longer side of my tutorials. It's just I wanted to cover everything from UI to stamina to actually increasing the movement speed. So even though this was a longer tutorial, I hope I covered everything you need for your entire sprinting system in this one video. If this did help, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. If you do have any questions, be sure to leave a comment down below. And if you do have any feedback on how I can improve these tutorials, be sure to also let me know down in the comments. With that said, I hope you all have a great rest of your day and good luck with your games.